only a craving for the physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from this world. And this world is fading away along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever.
So what are the manifestations of the world mentioned in verse 16?
Desires of flesh,
Right. So how can we avoid being conformed to the world? Turn to Romans 12:2.
They'll be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so you may prove what the will of God is, that it's good, successful, and perfect.
So why is it so hard for us to not be conformed to the world, even as Christians?
That's what it offers. We're here now.
We're surrounded by it, for one thing.
Correct.
And so it's influencing us all the time, and that's why we have to just keep focused on God and on the Spirit. The only way we do that is through the Word.
Go ahead.
Sometimes we're not bold enough to speak the truth because we don't want somebody to feel bad about us or think that we're being too straight or whatever.
Right.
We have to work with it, we have to work through it. It can corrupt us.
Mhm.
It's very easy.
So sometimes then we're saying that sometimes we're worried about what the world's going to think about us if we say certain things or believe certain things. See that a lot today, don't you?
Yeah.
In media. So,
Not only that, but they'll misconstrue and dress what you say to make it seem like you're saying something that you're not.
I think AI is a great thing. It can do a lot of great things. But what I worry about is that those kind of things when Joe, they could say, let's hear, this is Joe Chase delivering the lesson. They could have you up there and all, and that's not you saying what's being said. So that's kind of a scary part, man. You know, used to you'd say, well, if we'd have had video or pictures of that crime or whatever, then we'd know. Well, nowadays, you can't even say that anymore. Because they can take anything and make anything out of it. Or,
I had a personal experience of that a few years ago. They somehow got a hold, managed to make my grandson, make it sound to me like my grandson was calling. I know his voice. It was his voice that they had messed up. He was asking me for some money. My comment was, well, have you talked to your dad about? Oh, no, don't talk to my dad. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I can't give you any money without talking to your dad. Like, end of the conversation.
yeah, I know a lady that happened to, and all they did was get her voice off the phone, but it was her granddaughter, which it wasn't her granddaughter calling, but she called her by the Nana or whatever
Oh, yeah.
their name was. I mean, they knew everything about it. And that she lived in Colorado, and she had some friends that had an extra plane ticket, so she went to Mexico. And the taxi they were in was pulled over. Fake drugs, planted drugs were found, and she needed. The call came from what sounded like the embassy, there in Mexico. And I think she sent some money, but yeah, that's a pretty scary thing when you're not sure, but I think we all get over those things all the time.
Start getting codes.
Text, yeah, absolutely.
And say, if you're calling me and I don't take issue, you have to see a careful word.
That's right.
When news is still down, that man got wiped out, $32,000.
Yeah, I saw that story. That was pretty sad. Yeah. That was a big deal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the one that moved the money.
That's right.
You know, the thing is though, this has been happening since society has began.
Sure.
It's just done with a different way now, different device, you know. Used to they'd steal out of your mailbox. Now they,
Happened in biblical times, right? I guess there have been con men from the beginning of time. When you really look at it.
Esau and Jacob.
Sorry?
Key to that is confidence.
Yeah, that's the short for being a confidence man.
You
Yeah,
have confidence in what they say, because they make it sound so true.
that's right.
Same thing with some preachers.
Hey,
No, even I was.
And
That was interesting when I had that experience. And as soon as I said that, that was just like the end of the
That's right.
conversation.
and sometimes that's preachers that have preached the truth in the past.
That know better.
That know better, and they choose to do that. So that's why we are to search the scripture, right? We don't take what Joe says on face value, you just because Joe says it. And he'll tell you that, right, Joe?
Roger, I've been studying on Jehovah's Witness.
Mhm.
They came to our house, and I just kind of want to know. Joe gave us a book to read, and part of it says, those who go out on their own to study the Bible will be shunned and disowned from the church.
They used to always seem to come to my house on Sunday morning when I was getting ready to go to
Ours
church.
was Wednesday night. I said, y'all,
Yeah.
you picked a bad night.
That's what I'd say, I'm getting ready to go to church. Well, where do you attend? And I tell them, and it's like, oh, okay, thank you.
I invited them, and of course, they were
they don't like to mess with people in church.
No,
No,
no, they don't. Turn to Proverbs 4, 23 through 27. Proverbs 4, 23, 27.
for a harlot is a deep pit, and an adulterous woman is a narrow well.
4, 23. Proverbs 4, 23 through 27. That's okay.
That was an interesting one.
Yes.
Thing to deal with.
They're all interested.
Watch over your heart with all diligence. For from him flows springs of life. Throw away the deceitful mouth and put devious speech far from you. Let your eyes look directly ahead, and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. Watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. Not turn to the right or the left. Turn your foot for evil.
So through that, how can we keep our hearts with diligence?
Look good ahead, that's just.
Kind of covers a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Deceitful mouth, that can
Keeping focus.
cause a lot of problems. Yeah. Do we always ponder the path of our feet?
That's why we stumble.
It's- We gotta look ahead and see the rocks or whatever that are in the path and watch that.
I have a problem with that all the time because of my bad ankle. I have to look where I'm putting my foot and I have to look ahead and I'm always going like, I'll put it out.
Yeah, I remember when I was young, I didn't worry about where I stepped on anything. Now I have to look. Even if I'm getting down off my tractor or something, because like you said, with torn ACL and meniscus, if you don't put it in the right spot, get your weight on the right spot, you're in trouble. So that's what we need to do as Christians. We need to be sure where we're walking. And the path we're walking is the proper path.
Why do you think like hear a little help when you want.
That's right. That's kind of what we should do. I mean, scripture should be our walker, right? So let's turn to Matthew 15 and 19.
Is it 15:19?
Yes, ma'am.
For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornication, theft, false witness, and blasphemy. Blasphemy.
Where does that come from? Always kind of thinking like to say, whatever comes out of your mouth, that's what's in your heart. And you can't cover that up. You can't, you can't be, you just can't cover that up. Because that's the true thing. You can try to be as nice as you want to be and all, but I'm sure we've all seen people who are that way, and then all of a sudden something happens and they're tested a little bit, and things come out of their mouth that you normally wouldn't hear. So what are some of the major influences in society that corrupt the hearts of Christians nowadays? Internet.
TV,
I'm sorry.
TV,
Mm-hmm.
Half the time media.
Mm-hmm.
friends.
Friends. What's that other F word? Family.
Yeah.
Do what?
Phone.
Phone, outside interest. That's phone with PH, right? Unless we're spelling phonetically today, so. I don't think they do. Do they do phonics anymore?
Yes. We tried.
That's good. I think for a while they did. That's how I learned to spell.
I think social media influences the young to the older. It's just so prevalent and in so many different formats. And I think, there's influencers to buy stuff, but there's also influencers to make you think about things that you shouldn't.
I find it odd that I have one. Teenagers can spend so much time just watching videos and things. And, constantly, it's like, there's other things you can do, other than that, so.
It's making a lazy society, that's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of these people want to make their money that way. They don't want you to.
Well, whoever thought you could make money being an influencer
Millions of dollars.
or get on a TV show, your family, I'm not gonna mention any names, who has no talent at all, but yet people have to watch that. They don't keep that on the air, and you don't get likes if people aren't watching.
And some of that family is revealing clothing and things like that. That's an additional influence.
That's right. It's not like Little House on the Prairie, is it?
No.
One of the things that hurts us as a church is everything's done used to be 30 minutes. Now, 5 minutes is a video and they're on to something else. Sometimes it's 30 seconds. And so trying to hold people's attention, not just in the sermon, but even when we take the Lord's Supper, we're not used to concentrating on what's important.
Right.
Roger,
Yes, ma'am.
you mentioned Little House on the Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to share this. I went with our Pine Tree Church group when, what's his name, the guy that did Little House on the Prairie?
Michael Lanning?
Yeah, what is his name is. We went as a church group to go hear him speak at Welch.
Mhm.
we never heard such a foul mouth when we went.
Really?
We were just all went home very, very disappointed.
That's pretty disappointing.
It really was, because, we thought so much of the program and everything, we thought it was gonna be such a great experience.
Yeah, that happened to us.
It was an experience, but not what we expected.
That happened to us. We drove to Texarkana to see this a cappella group. The name was Anthem Lights. You may have heard some of them. Really good. But when we got up there, it was Sadie Robertson and her brother, and anyway, it wasn't. They only sang like 2 or 3 songs. It was kind of get you there, and for them to be members of the church, it was a little bit different than what we expected it to be. So sometimes you never know. One of those deals again about how they look, and then when you really get to know them, what they're really all about. That's pretty disappointing for me to know.
Well, it was really disappointing for one elder at the time, but Rick Williams took us there.
Yes.
It just killed him.
But isn't that sometimes disappointing with us and the people that we surround ourselves? Like, we know these people at church and stuff, and then when we do see them out in the workplace or someplace else, and you go, oh, really? You see a different side.
Right.
I think everybody's guilty of it. We have to watch that. Like you said, you stumble, and you think it's so easy to turn right back, and sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes you do twist that ankle to the point where, you need more people to help you through whatever it is that you're going through. But we've always, just our oldest, I'm just there to help my friends become better Christians or whatever. But yet, you took their path and you stayed on it. And now, you left it all. So, it's one of those I think all of us think, well, I can just do a little bit, it won't, but those little bits grow into bigger bits, and we just have to watch it on what we do.
And that's the way the evil one works.
Yes.
It's not always a slap in the face right at the start. It's some little bitty something.
Yeah.
And then,
Just like with Eve, he didn't sit there and go, he coached her into wanting to know as much as what God knew, and
you're not gonna die. Yeah, you won't die. Surely.
So,
Yeah.
I heard a comment on a movie. Satan makes his prison as comfortable as possible. And by the time you realize it's prison and not what you want, it's too late. You're already out.
Everlastingly too late. So how can we avoid being corrupted by all the filth that surrounds us?
The things we need to be doing.
Have a relationship with God.
Stand in the word.
pray.
Be vigilant.
Absolutely.
Pick better friends.
Pick better friends.
Yeah.
Do what, please?
But,
That's right.
and like Romans 12:2 just said, by renewal of your minds. How do you renew your mind? You attend worship services, you read the Bible, you find yourself where you should be.
Yeah.
So you have that base that you go to several times a week that should keep you strong and keep you where you need to be.
Be the same person 7 days a week, not
No matter what you do.
just on Sunday.
That's right. Y'all remember, it's been a few years, but I remember we talked about this, I think, last week ago. But when COVID was here, we couldn't meet. That was a hard time for us. You can talk on the phone and text and all, but it's just, we missed it so much.
Online worship is being real.
No,
Sure.
but people got real comfortable with that, by worshiping in your pajamas,
Some people do.
and some still do. Yeah. But it really hurt us in a lot of realms, but it really did in the church, for sure. So, not to say that we, we're gonna rub shoulders with people all the time in the world that, we're filthy, but doesn't mean we have to be. And Janet was right about our oldest, they're hurting, I need to help them, and the difference is, you do that, but then you remain who you are instead of going down that rabbit hole with them, so. So easy to do sometimes.
We need to know people, know our neighbors, to be an influence. We can't just hide in our house and the church building.
Right.
Because we need to be bold about speaking to others about it. I mean, that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do.
Sure it is, that's our command, right?
Yeah.
How are we gonna take people with us if we don't need them? So what are some of the characters in the Bible that overcame corrupt surroundings and were able to serve God in the right way?
Noah.
Sir? Noah?
Joseph.
Joseph. What else?
It's all over, James.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
I think most of the prophets,
Daniel, maybe?
most of God's prophets had difficult people coming against them all the time. They were just speaking what God told them to say.
Daniel.
Job, I love the story of Job because he constantly had to bother with his neighbors who were blaming him for his demise.
Even his closest person to
He
him,
opposed his friends.
what'd she say?
Yeah.
His wife.
Curse him and die.
Yeah,
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And David.
Oh,
Oh, Samson too.
yeah.
Paul,
Oh, okay.
All
all
Saul.
the apostles died, basically, or were punished because of their teaching.
But then there were some that didn't want that to happen to them. So let's go to Colossians 3:1-3.
If then you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above, not on things that are on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God.
So that's what we think about, right? As Christians. I hate to even think the other way, about not being able to see them. Scares me to think about what's going to be said at my time of judgment. Well done, my good and faithful servant, for that other one, and I don't even want to mention it. So,
But we can be sure.
yes, Joe.
That says you have died, in the third verse. We've died to the world when we became Christian, is what we're talking about. And you think about that, and I often wonder if I really did, or if I'm still hanging on to so many things that I shouldn't be hanging on to. And it's sometimes difficult.
How do you go about taking care of that.
Just try to focus more on Christ. That's all I can do.
Pray that he guides us where we need to be.
And you think back of when you became a Christian, where your mind was, where your heart was, and the reasons that you did become a Christian. And then they have the Lord.
Right. Yeah, there should be a,
Leaning on Jesus.
There should be a
He's
big-
even talking.
should be a big difference, right? In the before and after.
And we should be growing. We should be able to know that we are better than we were 5 years ago,
Right.
or whatever. That
What is
we're
it?
better at doing these things.
What does he tell us?
We're not gonna be perfect.
If we're not growing, what does he tell us? You're not moving ahead, you can't maintain the status quo. So do you have to be immoral to be worldly?
There's other sins.
I don't know that you have to be immoral, but if you're not a Christian following what God says, you're lost anyway. I mean, you could be a good person.
You heard that before? Well, I mean, they've got to go, they're a good person. But have they done what they need to do? It's been set forth for us, so. You know, today it seems as though there's a juggling act in society about what's illegal or what's immoral. So many things that are immoral, they're now legal, right?